Hey, Nicola. Hey, Judy. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, John.
How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Evening, Sean.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Just sorting out my lighting, you know.
Looks great.
You have to look good in a good light.
I can never get it right. I've even Ruth gave me one of these jokes.
Oh yeah.
It just I can't. It's just like can't even. I need a professional to come in and actually set it up for me because I can't get it working at all properly.
I thought I saw you being a professional in that kind of scenario before, or is that what just was?
I can't get it. I can get the like when I do the live workouts. I've got the big lights and shining on. That seems to work well, but not the close-ups.
Okay.
I might turn my face over and stuff. So.
I don't think these fellas help. Glasses.
Glasses? Yeah, no. It's a reflection, so you can already see them.
Yeah. Hey, Ruth.
Evening, Ruth.
Evening.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, John.
I'm going to mute myself now.
Julie's camera is not working at the moment, so she's not ignoring us.
Okay. We won't take it personally.
She says hi to everyone.
Hey, Julie.
Hey, Nicola. Okay, I'll give it a few more minutes. Just let anyone who wants to come on. If you guys have anything specific, because I'm going to go quite generally through cardio and weights, but if you have anything specific that you want me to go into a little bit more in depth, let me know. So you can either pop it in the chat box or just unmute yourself while I'm going through things and just ask a question, interrupt me, feel free. Who else have we got? We've got Jenny. Hello, Jenny. How are you? Evening, Damien. Love Nicola's headset. I need to get one. On. Brona is there. Good evening, Brona.
Hello.
Jennifer. Good evening, Jennifer. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Someone else jumped on. Ursula, how are you?
Hi, John.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we'll get started. More people to put on, they will. So as I said to those of you just coming on, if you have anything specific that you want me to go through when we, in terms of, again, it's quite broad, cardio versus weights, but I'm going to go through a couple of things just in terms of questions that I've been asked quite regularly over time. So if you can all mute yourself, I'll just kind of go through it, and then if you just unmute one at a time or whatever, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask me the question. It'll be easier. Perfect. Cool. And can you see cardio versus weights? Give me a nod if you can on the screen. Perfect. Good stuff. Okay, good to go. So I'm often asked, kind of what's best for, should I do more cardio or do more weights for, and they'll say insert my goal, kind of whatever that is. And I've been asked it from everything from, kind of sports performance wise to body composition, kind of losing weight, toning up, that kind of thing as well. So in terms of a kind of common one is a lot of people, there's a misconception. It's kind of like cardio's for losing weight or burning fat, and weights are for toning. When that's kind of basically incorrect. Now, obviously, when I went through last week, I went through some stuff on metabolism and kind of what we're actually doing when we're losing weight / burning fat. But what I want to do is show you. That's all right. My screen should have stopped. This one first. So when I want you to kind of imagine that this is a cross section of your kind of, let's say, muscle here, which is underneath the fat. Okay, these are all the fat cells. So when we're looking at, and again, this is a very common question you get asked, you know, should I do cardio for losing weight, burning fat, and then weights for toning? So when you train your muscle, essentially you're kind of making it a bit denser, and you're making it more tone. More tone basically essentially means that it's in a state of contraction because you've done your, you know, your kind of bench presses or whatever exercise you're doing. The muscle is kind of holding itself tighter together essentially. However, if you don't lose any of this fat, you'll never see the definition in that muscle. Okay, so it'll feel firmer underneath the fat, but it won't necessarily look much different. However, when you start burning the fat and strip away layers of it, that's when you start to see the actual definition and shape of the muscle coming through. But if it's hidden by a layer of fat that's too big, you'll never see it. Now, so when we're looking at, you know, kind of, that's essentially kind of a quick visualization of how that works. The key is to remember that that missing bit there has been eaten by our body for fuel. So the only way to make your body eat that for fuel is to give it a reason to, i.e. put in less fuel than you're burning off. And that will essentially cannibalize the tissue. And with an effective program where you're training your muscle, so you're targeting your muscle, your body's going to keep this tissue and get rid of this tissue. And that's what I said, with effective training program, when you're lifting weights, doing resistance training and adequate protein, they're the best conditions for signaling your body, hey, keep this, but get rid of this when you're in this calorie deficit, i.e. you're telling your body there's a fuel shortage and we need to get fuel from our tissues. We wanted to get rid of, again, when the whole kind of toning, losing weight kind of side of things is get rid of that stuff by essentially eating it for fuel or consuming it for fuel. So that's a quick just overview of that. Nope, that's the wrong one. So both are both can be used as an effective tool for, let's say, kind of changing your body composition. But instead of looking at that as burning fat or toning, they're kind of happening both at the same time. Essentially, you need both to happen. You need to train the muscle and you need to burn the fat in order to be able to do that. And it's a whole kind of, let's say, general approach. And the other side of the thing is like fitness versus strength. So it's kind of like if somebody's playing a sport, it's kind of like, oh, I need to get fitter for my sport, so I'll do more cardio. That doesn't always necessarily work. And again, I'll kind of go into things and explain kind of why that is as we're going through this. Fitness versus strength could also be looked at. It's your heart and lungs, which what people kind of think is, okay, I'm training my heart and lungs for cardio wise, and then when I'm doing weights, I'm training my muscles. But essentially, your heart and lungs are basically sending nutrient-rich oxygenated blood to the muscles to get them to move and perform. So they're interlinked. They're not separate systems when we're exercising. No matter what exercise we're doing, it's your muscles are doing the movement, so they're creating a demand for energy, and the blood is sending it using the heart and lungs to the muscles. So they're not two separate systems. They're interlinked and they're very dependent upon each other. And that's what I said, is you can't really kind of look at, okay, which one's best. They are complementary to each other. So basically, there's two main qualities that we're going to look at in terms of training-wise, training effect here. Okay, the first one is called work capacity, which is ability to do effective work, good work, in terms of performance-wise. Nutrient delivery. So as I said, just explained there, is kind of you're sending oxygen, you're sending nutrients to the muscles to get them to work. And there's also then we want to kind of, let's say, prevent what's called global fatigue. So this is essentially what kind of cardiovascular work would do, or your cardiovascular system is doing. So it's helping you deliver nutrients to your muscles. It's helping you prevent kind of full body fatigue, where if your body gets fatigued, our technique starts to break down. We'll lose concentration. It's easier to stop because I'm tired. And again, as I said, it's a global fatigue, for want of a better explanation. With regards to strength-wise, then, and kind of lifting weights, every rep we do is an expression of strength. So I'm not just talking about a rep in the gym. I'm talking about when we take a step up a stairs. That's an expression of your strength. You're lifting your weight, your body weight up a set of stairs. A stride when we walk is the same thing. It's pushing your body forward. So every single movement we do in life is essentially an expression of strength, which means let's say kind of we use a couple of examples. So in tennis, I see Ursula there on screen is a tennis player. So when she hits the ball or moves towards the net or takes a serve or whatever, like every single time she does that, that's an expression of her strength. Someone's golf, they swing golf, they're walking uphill towards, get to the green or something like that. They're going downhill, they have to kind of use their legs to stop them from falling flat on their face. It's all an expression of strength. Now, when you're stronger, it means each rep, no matter what it is, whether it's a stride when walking, going up the stairs, hitting the tennis ball, if you're stronger, that's easier to do, which means you use less energy to do it, which means you're going to generate less fatigue, which means you're going to be able to improve your performance or last longer. Does that make sense? Give me some nods if it's making sense. So, as I said, they're both cardiovascular work and strength work, or the benefits for them are both very important for us, because we can't really say, oh, I just want one and I don't want the other. But then, and again, I'm going to show you kind of how they're interlinked. So, you can basically, if you build strength, you can then teach your body how to endure that strength and kind of keep it up and keep it going over the course of a tennis match, or when it comes to gym performance, which is, let's say, kind of what a lot of us are doing. We're going to the gym and want to maximize our performance in the gym to maximize our results. In terms of work capacity, it's basically going to help you get through more work. So you could do more sets, more reps, lift more weight within the given kind of same amount of time, kind of 45, 50-minute session. Less end of session fatigue. So obviously when you start a session, you're kind of feeling fresh. You might start off with some deadlifts or something like that. But as you're getting to your last set on your last exercise, if you're very fatigued by that, the benefits of doing that exercise or your ability to progress and perform well on that exercise is going to be greatly diminished. And that's why having that work capacity, your body's ability to kind of send nutrients to the muscles and kind of keep them working well, even after a tough session, is important. And then the benefits, obviously reducing the risk of injury from, starting to get sloppy technique, loss and concentration again as we go through a session. Better breathing control as well. Your body's less more. And then faster recovery overall. So that could be within set recovery or within session recovery. So from set to set, that you're not kind of falling off a cliff and kind of, again, by the time you get to the third or fourth set of an exercise, that you're kind of completely exhausted. But also it helps with faster recovery from session to session. So when you come back in, you're feeling fresher and more able to go. And again, it all kind of comes down. A good way to kind of think about work capacity / cardiovascular fitness is like, having free flowing rivers going through your body. And that's your kind of your blood vessels, essentially sending blood to the muscles and then the waste products back to the heart, and kind of, again, just kind of regenerating the whole thing. Free flowing rivers versus stagnant lakes. If that, it's a kind of a visualization that if you're not able to send nutrients quickly, fastly, efficiently, it's going to add to more fatigue, less performance. So when we look at strength-wise then in gym performance, obviously when we get stronger and training for strength helps us with a better technique, because we can control a heavier weight or a dumbbell much more easily as we're stronger. Increased confidence in our ability as well. So oftentimes it's great to watch members start off, get introduced to strength training, get stronger, and then all of a sudden you just see the confidence as they go through their session. It's like, yeah, I'll pick up this weight, yeah, I can do this, and there's just an overall general confidence in the ability to perform a session. And again, kind of we're looking at as we're performing a session to get the results that we're training for. And getting stronger will lead to faster progress because you're challenging your muscles more. You're essentially doing more work. And then there's less local fatigue doing cardio. So if your legs and arms and core, etc., are stronger, then when you do cardiovascular work, again, it doesn't matter whether you're playing tennis or if you're kind of on a bike, rower, using the ropes or something like that. What can happen a lot of time if someone's not strong enough, and they start doing cardio on the bike or something like that, it's actually their muscles in the arms and the legs that fatigue first before the heart and the lungs. But we want the heart and the lungs to be getting the training effect when we're doing cardio more so than the legs and the arms. Now, yes, you'll feel it happening obviously in your legs and your arms, because that's the only way you're going to challenge the heart and the lungs is through moving the legs, arms, etc. But very often, let's say the ropes are a good one. When you first start introducing people to the ropes, they're kind of like, oh, my arms are falling, blah, 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 and they can't even get their heart rate up because they're kind of so fatigued. As they build their strength, then they're kind of, laying into the ropes and kind of lashing away with them. And all of a sudden they start feeling it in their, they're able to get the training effect in their heart and lungs. Benefits of strength training, I'm not going to go through each and every one, but they're vast. So a couple of the obvious ones: stronger bones and joints. There's a lot to do with overall health that has been shown. And in fact, there's been studies on vaccines with strength training, where a 15-minute strength training session prior to a vaccine improved the vaccine's effectiveness within people, which is fascinating. So a 15-minute strength training session actually improved the vaccine's effectiveness on the immune system. So there's loads in terms of improving overall health. One of the great things about strength training is this bottom left one: improving insulin sensitivity, which is essentially reducing diabetes risk. That is basically makes the muscle utilize, your muscles look at sugar essentially. So if we're training our muscles are going to go, hey, I want sugar into my muscles, which means there's less sugar floating around the bloodstream. And again, basically that's essentially what improved insulin sensitivity is. The muscles are just going to be sucking in the sugar into the muscle, holding them in there as a sugar floating around the bloodstream. And overall, strong people are harder to kill and generally more useful in life. So that's one of my favorite quotes from a world-renowned strength coach called Mark Rippetoe. Cardio, very similar. See the mental health sort of things.
I'm going to guess John has lost power again. I'm going to text him. Give me 2 seconds.
Sorry.
Oh, you're back. I was just about to text you.
No, no power and internet.
Again? Seriously, you need to move back to Dublin.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, kind of. Where are you? Oh, there you are. You've no picture.
Yeah, living in the States.
There you are. You're back. I think.
Okay, I'm just gonna live. It's flashing up here saying I've been unstable. Asked everyone to get off the internet basically. Yeah. The next box on upstairs and second Netflix on in another room. So like that. So we're
they all need to go to bed.
We're running on all the internet. Let's get back to here.
Let me mute myself again.
Okay, so no worries. Okay, that looks like it's going a bit better. Okay, so yeah, so traditionally when you think about cardiovascular work, now I kind of almost preaching to the converted here, because you've just come, the way you train in the gym is what I'm going to explain here, but it's kind of like, it's nice to know the reason why, or kind of the the traditional forms of cardiovascular work is like walking, running, swimming. Like you go into a commercial gym and there's a cardio section. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, you've got a rows of treadmills, rows of blah, 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 stuff like that. And then there's the weight section. In terms of cardio, we can do what's called steady state, which is just basically a consistent pace the whole time, or interval-based training. And that can be at varying intensities, going from low intensity to high intensity size, and the different benefits to both. Low intensity stuff is more about sending the nutrients around your body without creating too much waste. So, a good walk, depending on your fitness level, it might be a jog, but something kind of, keeping your heart rate between about 120 and 150 beats per minute is considered low intensity. High intensity would be going above 150 beats per minute. And then weights, the traditional weights, again, you go into your commercial gyms and you see these machines everywhere, and kind of bodybuilders or kind of powerlifters lifting heavy weights, grunting away and things like that. But obviously, then, in terms of how we do the weights is, we can do a mix of different types of reps and sets. Just a kind of brief explanation. If we're doing high reps, we tend to do less sets. And we take less rest, because even though there's kind of a lot of fatigue on our body, it's a muscular fatigue, which is quite easy to recover from with a brief rest period. Where if we do lower reps, we then tend to do more sets and have more rest, because we're kind of actually training your nervous system to recruit more muscle. So it's actually more demanding on your body to do that, which means that we actually do need a little bit more rest if we're doing things like 6 reps or 5 reps or something like that, even though we may not feel like we need it. But to get the best out of the next set, rest is actually kind of is better. And then if you look at, let's say 2 by 15 is equal to 30 total reps, and 4 by 6 is equal to 24. So we can't just look at it as a reps thing, because for most of you, if you did, you kind of imagine if you did 4 sets of 6 of a kind of a challenging weight at 6 reps versus 2 by 15, the 4 by 6 is going to take more total out of you, even though you're actually doing less reps. The reason it's taking more out of you, though, is because it's kind of training more than just your muscles, it's training your nervous system as well. And that's why, as I said, we want kind of more things. So hybrid style of training, rather than doing cardio or weights, is kind of like, we can use weights to improve our fitness, i.e. swing a kettlebell. It's a weight, but we're doing it as a lighter weight, kind of for more reps. And we can do a mix like a circuit, and we can improve our fitness level using weights. Again, like I said, I'm kind of preaching to the converted here. And then we can use cardio for strength gains to a point. So again, kind of doing something like when we kind of build our heart rate up to about 85%, you're pushing hard on something, you're slamming a ball hard into the ground. So you can use that, as I said, for ability to train your body to get stronger. As I said, up to a point. Nothing beats, deadlifting heavy or squatting heavy or something like that once you get your fitness and your strength levels to a specific point. And also things like if you go hill walking, again, kind of no matter how kind of fit someone gets, you got to get a good solid hill walk. You're challenging your legs, and it's a very specific strength that kind of we need for that, or hill running for people who run. So in order to then, I wanted to go through that. So because kind of both are important, and it's kind of like, oftentimes when we kind of talk to new members, it's kind of like, it's kind of like A or B, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't like this, but I like this, and some people, like even kind of chatting to you guys, I know some of you, kind of have a love-hate relationship with cardio sessions, whereas other people are like, oh, can I do more cardio and less strength sessions? So it's, but they're both are very, very valuable and important for us to do. So in terms of getting the most out of your strength sessions, then, is get better at them. That's the kind of bottom line. But how do we get better? So the first thing is to make sure our range of movement is good and consistent. There's no point in doing a squat where you go down here on your first rep, but you're only kind of going halfway down on your kind of last few reps. So we want to make sure our range of movement, and we really focus on the technique range of movement that we're using, that it's consistent the whole way through, and not to kind of take cut corners on that. So a lot of people tend to, if they want to push themselves, they're trying to increase more weight or get their reps in, but they're changing their technique and their range of movement to do that. That's not what we'd recommend. So we've got to make sure we're really kind of honest with ourselves. Obviously, as a coach, we can look at you and advise you and kind of teach you that. But to get it into your own head, to kind of go, okay, even though this range of movement is tough and challenging with this weight, I'm still pushing myself to get to it. You know, kind of, it's very hard for a coach to help someone if they don't want to be helped. So again, kind of having that kind of intent to, you know, kind of get that solid range of movement every single time. Get better in terms of the intent while you're lifting. So if we lift with good, you know, confidence, focus, strength, you know, on a bench press, and we're pushing up kind of, you know, with that confidence and intent, that will help us improve because it actually activates more muscle. It wakes up our nervous system a little bit more. Whereas if we're kind of lifting something and going, oh, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about this, you're literally holding back on yourself. So we've got to kind of approach things with that intent and confidence. Increasing reps, increasing sets will all add to the difficulty, or to you getting better at the same weight, let's say. But that's only to a certain point, because we don't want to end up doing 20 reps, you know, or 20 reps and 10 sets of 20 reps. You know, we're going to be there at the gym all day. So what we want to do is kind of, you know, when we're designing programs for you, is we're giving you a target of sets and reps. And the idea then is to increase the weight you're doing with those. And one thing I want to reiterate, because it's hard to get through sometimes, is that if, let's say, your kind of program is, you know, 3 sets of 10, let's say, the 10 is a guide and a target, not a minimum number. So what we want to do is we prefer you to increase, and it's more beneficial if you increase the weight and did less reps, and then have that target, right? With this new weight I'm lifting, I'm going to try and get 10 with over the course of the next few sessions. Does that make sense? So rather than kind of going, oh, I'm not sure if I'd be able to get 10 with the heavier weight, is like, yeah, we don't know, because you've never done it before. But if you kind of goes, right, if I do this heavier weight, I'll just give myself, I'll do 5 or 6. And then as you're doing them, you're like, oh, actually, I can actually get 8 there. Cool, I got 8. Then the next time you come and do that, you're trying to get 8, 9, 10, and kind of progressing. That's the absolute best way to maximize your kind of progress, is to be constantly increasing in weight. And the way the strength sessions are designed and stuff like that is kind of every session or two, that should happen. Your weight should go up and up and up and up and up over the course of the program. And then we change the program. And by changing the program, what it essentially does is it changes the stimulus you're having an effect on the body, and allows you to then to make more progress and further progress you go. You should need a rest after doing a set. So some people kind of, you know, almost fly through their workout sometimes, and you're kind of like, if that's the case, and you kind of don't feel like you need a rest, well, you're probably holding back on yourself in terms of strength wise. Because if you don't feel like you need a rest, you probably could have lifted a heavier weight, which means you held back on the progressions that you could have made during your session. And all things, and this is with all exercise training should be a stimulus to the body so that it adapts. Now, in terms of kind of doing strength sessions, it's you build muscle, or you stimulate your body to build muscle, you tone up the muscles, tighten them up, and you strengthen up your bones and joints, etc. If there's no stimulus, there's no adaptation, which means there's no progress. So the stimulus is very important, and that's what we're trying to do. The only way you can stimulate an adaptation in the body is to try and do something you've never done before, i.e. increase the weight, do an extra rep of the same weight or whatever like that. But if you're doing this, someone does the same thing over and over and over again, there's no stimulus there anymore, because the body knows it can do that. I can do 3 sets of 10 of this all day long. There's no stimulus for the body to adapt, because it can handle what you're doing or what you're throwing at it. So that's, again, very important that we want to be stimulating in this case, the muscles every session that we do, because without a stimulus, there's no adaptation, there's no progress. The key word is stimulation, not annihilation. So oftentimes, kind of more so with kind of cardiovascular work, if people kind of want to almost kind of train themselves to complete exhaustion. That's not the most wisest way of training or exercising, because what happens is you're over fatiguing the body. Good way to kind of example is rugby players playing a match is a kind of performance that they basically trained for. So the training isn't the performance. Training is just a stimulation. And again, for us who aren't kind of playing matches or blah, kind of generally kind of, exerting ourselves to the absolute highest level, or have a requirement to it. If we're kind of stimulating consistently, it means we can consistently recover and recover and recover, which means we can continuously make progress, make progress. If we try and push ourselves too hard, what happens is we end up stagnating because the body just simply cannot recover from too intense exercise that's too intense. And then in terms of the strength sessions is it'll help maximize fat burning. So this comes back to the muscle building side of things. So if you're stimulating your body to build muscle, going back to that diagram that I showed you at the start, is you're telling your body, you're sending the signal to your body, hey, we need this muscle, we need this muscle, we need this muscle. In fact, we're trying to build some muscle here. And then if you're in a calorie deficit, or even that kind of, in terms of you're putting in less fuel than you're burning off, your body is going to take away the fat and leave and spare the muscle. However, if we're not stimulating the body to keep muscle, and that's not necessarily just by doing weights, they have to be done in that kind of progressive way that we've gone through there. If we're not stimulating the muscle, then we're not maximizing fat burning. And again, kind of, oftentimes people want to, kind of look a bit more toned, kind of create some definition. So whether it's kind of, losing a couple of pounds or losing, stones in weight, this is so vitally important because it makes you lose the most amount of fat. To maximize your cardio sessions, again, understanding this as well can help kind of a little bit more with kind of motivational. Okay, why am I doing these cardio sessions? And kind of how to get the best out of them. To maximize them is focus on the recovery side of things. Okay, so again, kind of going back to that kind of stimulation, not annihilation, people focus on, okay, I got to get to, let's say, if we're doing interval training, up to 85% of your heart rate, is I got to push myself to get to 85. And they do this kind of big sprint and get to 85%. But that actually then hinders recovery, so they can't recover as fast enough. So what happens in, let's say, a 20-minute block of work is if they're pushing too hard, it takes longer for the heart rate to come down. Then they push too hard again, it takes longer for the heart rate to come down. They'll get a fewer amount of intervals, i.e. they'll do less work in that 20 minutes. Whereas if you can recover faster, i.e. if it takes you 30 seconds to recover versus taking you 60 seconds to recover from an interval, you'll actually go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You'll get more work done in the same amount of time, which will say kind of improve the benefits of that session. And the recovery is in your control a lot more than we think. So recovery isn't just about kind of, let's say, I'm going to wait for my heart rate to come back down. You can actively lower your heart rate come down. Now, people who are very skilled at this are like snipers and stuff like that. In the army and trained, they can actually really control and get their heart rate way down. So there's just their bodies are basically so still. But it is a trainable thing. The easiest way to train it is through nasal breathing. So the lower your heart rate comes, the easier it is to kind of breathe through your nose. There's a certain point you'll get, as your heart rate goes up, that you just simply can't breathe through your nose. But as you're recovering, let's say if you're on the bike and you're kind of recovering, your heart rate's coming down below 80. If you're trying to get that breathing, that'll lower your and it'll actually lower your heart rate much quicker, much faster. And again, you do that, you end up kind of working more within that kind of same amount of time. The other thing then with kind of, if we're doing interval training, and the goal is to get to the target, i.e. 85%, not blast past. So the skill in being kind of becoming, let's say, better at cardio sessions and making them more effective is kind of, as you're pushing yourself, you're hitting 85 and you kind of, you're trying to basically keep it at 85 and come straight back down. So it's just a peak and then down, rather than going 85, 88, 90 and then back down. The skill and control in your body, essentially controlling your fitness. So you can kind of hit 85 and then kind of come back down. And then again, coming back to it, it's a stimulus to adapt. So the stimulus is to get fitter, to improve your recovery, and to improve your capacity to do work. Again, the whole thing, if there's no stimulus, there's no adaptation, there's no progress. And again, the whole key with it is that, especially the kind of style of heart rate training, the 85% blend down to 70%, it's not meant to be completely and utterly exhaustive. It's meant to be, as I said, a stimulation, not an annihilation. It's going to 95% on each interval is not better than going to 85%, if that makes sense. So if you have, let's see, if anybody has any questions, do let me know. Any questions specifically? Again, I wanted to go through a kind of that kind of general overview there. But there are kind of some myths. So again, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box there, or kind of unmute yourself. But while we're going through that, then is one of the things, just kind of touching on that, you kind of hear about HIIT training or high intensity interval training. So there's so many places that I know that basically it's all about the interval, i.e. it's all about the pushing yourself to work as hard as you possibly can and absolutely exhaust yourself. They're very kind of, let's say, short rest periods. So okay, we'll do 40 seconds of work, 10 seconds rest, and after we're absolutely completely shattered and exhausted of, let's say, 40 seconds of burpees, 10 seconds rest, and 40 seconds of jump squats and 10 seconds rest or something like that. That style, even though it feels like it's working, you get a lot of people say, oh no, it's a great session, I'm absolutely exhausted from it. But are we actually improving? And oftentimes with high intensity interval training, it's done too high intensity for us to actually get any sort of fitness improvements out of it long term, because we're not training our recovery. And when we look at fitness is the ability to do more work, which is essentially our ability to recover better or to limit fatigue. Anybody can train themselves to get tired, or can exercise to get tired, but to actually train ourselves to improve and get better is all about the actual recovery side of things. Very common one in terms of bulky. Now, again, kind of, if you've been training any length of time at SF Fitness and kind of, you've kind of started lifting heavier weights, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this doesn't make me bulky. One of the things with kind of bulkiness is essentially what we're doing with, if somebody does bulk up and adds on a lot of muscle, they're doing the opposite of what I talked about, is basically cannibalizing our tissues for fuel. What we're actually doing is laying down more tissue as kind of for storage. We're laying down more fuel for storage, so more protein, more carbohydrate, more fat, it's all getting stored on the body. The only way you're going to do that is if you're in a calorie surplus. So if we notice that, again, genetically, some people can build more muscle than others, but if we notice that we're getting bulky and we don't want to get, we don't want that, is, well, getting bulky would be a sign of we're in a calorie surplus, because essentially what means is we're adding tissue onto the body. Now, again, getting bulky, it could be another term. Some people say they're getting bulky and kind of would measure the body fat levels. The body fat levels have gone up. Again, it's tissue being laid down in the body. We want to increase muscle to keep our body fat levels low. It's essentially the same process, but just not as much of a calorie surplus. So the only way we can get bulky is in a calorie surplus, because that's the only way you can lay down extra tissue on the body. Another thing is then high reps for toning. So oftentimes, and let's say, what's your one name? Tracy Anderson. She's quoted in magazines as saying women should never lift more than like 2-pound dumbbells and stuff like that. Like, this is like, how do they lift their handbag? Like, whatever. And again, this whole kind of thing, if I do high reps, I'm going to tone up the muscle more, or I'm going to tone up my body more. And essentially what kind of, let's say, we look in research and actually see how muscles respond to exercise or whatever, it actually comes down to is the performance of the set itself. So if I do 20 reps and my last couple of reps are, basically what we call to failure, i.e. or close enough to failure that I can barely do any more after the 20 reps, versus if I do 6 reps and the same thing, I can barely do any more after the 6 reps. They're both going to have a very similar training effect in terms of stimulating that muscle to stimulate your body to keep that muscle, to build a bit of muscle, etc. So they're both very, very similar size, as long as you're taking the set close to failure. I do 20 reps and I literally couldn't do another one, but I do 6 reps. And the other way, if I do 20 reps and I could have done 30 versus doing 6 and I could only do 7, the 6 reps is going to be more effective. So again, it's how you perform the exercise, not the exercise itself or the set itself. one of the things in terms of dangerous injury, and kind of another thing I want to put into that is like kind of bad for our joints or our kind of knees and stuff like that in terms of strength training, is kind of the actual research now shows that strength training helps regenerate cartilage in our joints. So it's actually very, very beneficial. So the other side of the coin is only kind of, let's say, if we lose focus and concentration on an exercise, you know, we're lifting a heavy weight, then that can kind of increase and heighten the risk of injury. But always, let's say, kind of when we're kind of advising you and doing weights, is kind of leave, you know, kind of 2 reps there, you know, that kind of confidently, you know, if you're doing 6 reps, okay, I could have done 8. That's a good way to kind of go with it, because you're kind of not pushing yourself beyond your capacity, beyond your capability, but you know you're going to be able to kind of finish that strong. And again, like I said, then if you're increasing a weight, you can drop the reps down rather than forcing yourself to have to get the same reps you did at a lower weight. You just do lower reps at the same at a heavier weight, and then get your body used to doing that and kind of build yourself back up. One of the other things in terms of a kind of injury and hurting ourselves and kind of is your body's going to kind of, you know, kind of weaker joints, muscles, etc., are going to be more susceptible to getting hurt rather than stronger. So one of the keys is, again, kind of getting stronger makes us more resilient. I had another one there. Cool. So I have the questions coming through. Good question, Sean. Yes, perfect, Nicola. Good stuff. So is there a benefit to fasted cardio for fat loss? So no, there's essentially is a very kind of see it kind of written everywhere, or kind of a lot of magazines basically. And it's actually really old school side of things that kind of bodybuilders used to do. And they get up and kind of do what's called fasted cardio. So i.e. they'd exercise on an empty stomach. They wouldn't have eaten since dinner the night before, whatever like that. And the idea is that because there's no fuel from the food that they've eaten, they're going to then burn more fat. However, all things being equal, is if we're in the same calorie deficit, person A and person B, and person A eats before they train, and then person B doesn't, but they're in the same calorie deficit, all things being equal, no, absolutely not. If doing fasted cardio means you're in a bigger calorie deficit or helps you stay in a calorie deficit, then yes. So again, it's kind of like you've got to look at the overall big picture rather than just the kind of the one, you know, let's say training session. But then you've got kind of arguments to say that if somebody, I think, was it you, Ursula, that you were having something you didn't used to eat before training, and then you did try to eat before training, and you felt your energy levels, etc., was much better. So that's another thing, that if you find you've more energy from eating before training and then you train, then you're able to perform better. Well, then that's better than if you do it without eating and then you can't perform as well. Well, then you're limiting your performance. And again, the whole key is performance side of things. Me personally, I much prefer to train on an empty stomach than a full stomach. Much more prefer. I'm just much more comfortable. I feel just kind of generally kind of better capable and able to just to move around and stuff like that, and not have to kind of have food sitting in my stomach. So I generally train early in the morning, so 6-7 o'clock in the morning. If I'm training, as long as I'm not going to eat beforehand, I'll have coffee and that's it. So I hope that answers your question, Sean. As always, I'm very vague because yes and no is the answer to that. But it's not something I, you know, kind of say you must do fasted cardio, because otherwise you're not going to do it. Then Nicola, great question. So what is the measure of cardio fitness improvement? Is it a faster recovery rate? Yes, absolutely. Now, the heart rate monitoring system that we use, and I've asked them multiple times to change the reports that they give us from us, because the reports they give us from us are the average heart rate per minute rather than the actual heart rate. So essentially what it is going to, you know, if your heart rate goes, you know, if you're doing interval training and your heart rate goes from, you know, 130 beats per minute up to 160 beats per minute, and you hit 160 and then you're coming back down, your heart rate average is 140, 145 or something like that. Within that, it doesn't tell you got to 160. Does that make sense? So it's much harder to use the reports that they get from that, and I don't know why they don't do it, because most other places do, but I am looking at other systems for it. But it's much better to get exact heart rate measurements, because if you have an exact heart rate measurement, then you got up to 160, and it took me 30 seconds to get back down to 130 before I went again. And yes, absolutely, the faster you can recover, essentially, the fitter you are. That's the key, and that's why I said is a lot with cardiovascular training isn't about how hard we can push ourselves, it's how much we can recover, because the person who recovers most is the person who can basically last longer. So again, if we look at the elite sports strength side of things, or elite sport kind of side of things, is the best athletes, if they can recover better and play a rugby match and they're feeling fitter towards the end of the match, and obviously can tackle harder, can run faster, can blah blah blah, they're the ones that are going to be able to they're the ones that are going to be able to look like the best players, because, as I said, and that's goes down to when they do get a pause in, right, their heart rate drops right back down, and they're never up at this maximal kind of effort levels where they're absolutely completely shattered and exhausted. So I hope that answers your question, Nicola. So yeah, so faster recovery rate is absolutely a great way to measure your fitness improvement. Also, then actually another side of things is your sort of resting heart rate. So if you use like a sleep tracker kind of device or anything like that, what is your resting heart rate? So it would be basically the lowest heart rate. Or another way to take it is take your heart rate first thing in the morning as waking up. And again, if you have the lower that is, or if you can get it going lower, it will show you an improvement in your fitness levels. It's generally correlated with that. The opposite side of things is that you have an increasing heart rate. It is a sign that there's more stress and fatigue on your body. So I track mine all the time. So I get kind of thing, but it literally, as I said, I can see it going up if I'm doing lots of training. So my resting heart rate will go from kind of in the kind of mid 50s up towards the 60s. And then when I'm recovering better and stuff like that, it kind of float around the kind of mid 50s thereabouts. So my target is to kind of keep it in and around there, but every now and again it'll go up because I'm training kind of harder and stuff like that. So that is another good measurement for that. So that is pretty much all I have. If you do have any more questions, now is the time to speak. I'm going to stop sharing this. It's just silence. Unmute yourself, people. Even if you don't have a question, just unmute yourself. You can just chat and talk. The closest we can get to communicating until next week. Well, by all things, everything looking good. It looks like gyms are going to be allowed open again. Yay.
Woohoo. We're not being pushed outside into the cold.
No, I know.
No, definitely not. You're very welcome, Nicola. The gym is going to look very different as well. Exciting.
Oh, you've it all changed.
Yeah.
It's not finished. So fingers crossed, it's going to be finished. But
Did we get a peek, a little surprise video or
I
anything?
can't do that.
You have to, John, for those of us who can't get there.
It has to be. Oh, yeah.
Well, at the moment, you can't do any training in it.
Some of us can't cope with surprises, John. It's not good for the heart rate.
Yeah, it's not good for your resting heart rate and your fitness level. No, what I'll do is I'll take a photo.
Not clean, so we're not seeing it yet.
I can send, but it'll be very thing. It'll be everything dismantled. So, anybody, any other questions? We all good?
All good.
All good, yeah.
All good.
Yeah, I have a bit of exercise inertia at the moment, I'm afraid.
That's all right. It's like I've had plenty of it over the last 6 weeks. Running's the only thing that's keeping me going. Literally, I'm mad. I've gone from like doing weight training 5 days a week to now like doing loads of cardio.
Exact same. I'm only doing running now. I've been mostly.
Don't say only. Never say only, Judy. Never say only. We are doing way more than everybody else. The large majority of the population and stuff like that are doing absolutely nothing. But to keep us going and to keep us going, as I said, doing anything is going to keep us going and stuff like that, which means that when we go back and do start training in the gym again, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for us because we kept up the momentum. It's sure, Brona, you've been, it's like since March that you haven't been, so that's a long time since we've had you training in the gym.
I know, I can't wait to get back. I think that's really what I need. I think I just need to actually, physically get up and get out and get going. I think,
Yeah.
because even though I train here, normally I do, and I go walking, it's not the same.
No, absolutely not. It's and that's also, you know what I mean, that like the environment of training alongside other people for me is just, again, it's one of the reasons why I moved from like I used to just do all one-to-one personal training and stuff like that. I used to do home visits and stuff like that, but there was never the, being able to create the environment like we have with SF Fitness, where there's everyone's training alongside each other and doing very similar style kind of training. It's kind of like that atmosphere and environment. It's infectious.
Yeah. I mean, you feed off other people, I think, too,
Yeah. The other thing is, once you get to the gym, you're not just going to sit down on the bench and wait for 45 minutes and then go home. Like, you're going to do something. You know what I mean? Like, once you get to the gym, that's the hard part. You just have to walk in the door.
My
You wouldn't be
favorite,
left, John.
my favorite exercise in SF is this.
The
All the
chatter.
chat. All the
Chatting
chat.
away.
Yourself and Fiona.
Yeah, and everyone. Yeah, I really miss that. I miss all the crack. Yeah, I do.
Oh, we'll have plenty of that for Christmas, and we're going to have the gym decorated, all festively decorated for you for next week as well. So
We'll be
Lovely.
6 years old next week.
I forgot about that. There's so everything else going on. I forgot.
So
Wow.
we'll
Yeah.
be 6 on Tuesday, the 1st of December.
How many years?
When we're allowed back open.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're not allowed to open until midnight. So,
Oh, it's midnight on the first. No, so it beats 12:01 the first.
We have to have a midnight session like we did with the marathon.
Second, John.
I haven't looked. So
It's a
I'm
minute
saying-
after midnight on the 2nd.
Yeah,
Oh, is it?
yeah.
Ah,
Not on the 1st.
I had in my head it was a minute after the second. Wait an extra day.
Oh no.
I'm going to get on to Mihal. I'm going to ask Mihal and just double.
Midnight. Who wants to do a session?
Okay, bye-bye. I'm going to do a wee session here myself. Cheers.
Nice.
I love it, Sean.
Enjoy, Sean. Enjoy. All right, guys. Listen, great to see you. Great to
Thanks,
see you.
John.
Okay, everyone.
see you next week.
Thanks.
Later, bye. Bye.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye.